Here you go, Terry. Coming back to host. And we are live on YouTube.
Hey, Mariah, it's Carol. Can you make me host?
I can't. I gave it to Terry.
Okay, yeah, she's not seeing anything. All right, sorry. Okay.
Can I help you by like moving people over?
Okay, my apologies. I was answering the phone call from upstairs. What seems to be the problem here? We got attendees. Let me get some of these attendees moved over real quick.
I made Terry host when I returned from going live on YouTube, and apparently she can't see anything. And we will be live on YouTube TV in about 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, are we fully live?
Just maybe 5 more seconds.
Okay.
Did we get the host situation figured out?
I believe we did.
Okay, yes, and Mayor, we are live now on UGTV and YouTube.
Thank you. I'm just pulling up my guide. Thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some commissioners, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom or by phone. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and his current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, the public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting. Those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Roll call. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum. Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Alvey.
Here.
One more time. Commissioner Bynum.
She is in the attendees list.
All right, let me promote her. Okay. Commissioner Bynum, can you hear me?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane. Thank you.
Thank you. Our invocation is being given by Commissioner Harold Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you today for this day that you've allowed us to see. We thank you for life. We thank you for bringing us together as the governing body of this great city. We pray, God, that you would guide us tonight as we seek to make decisions on behalf of this city that would benefit the quality of life for all the persons that are part of Wyandotte County. Give us, God, your favor and your guidance as relates to our health orders, whether it be from the federal level all the way down to the local level. Give us, Lord, your will as to the decisions that we are to make so that we benefit everyone from every corner of Wyandotte County, that make this a wonderful place to live and to raise a family. We pray this in your matchless name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Dykler, any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mayor, there were 2 revisions to tonight. A blue sheet was distributed for the Standing Committee agenda regarding the Healthy, Resilient, and Sustainable Materials Grant. A second change was issued via a pink sheet. It was distributed to the mayor's agenda regarding a resolution amending the local health order from 3/25/21.
Thank you. All right, so tonight we have 2 parts to our meeting, planning and zoning first, followed by regular commission. I'd ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Mayor, I believe we need to go through the mayor's agenda first and discuss the pink sheet before we do that.
Okay, so should I be using the pink sheet guide that you sent?
Yes, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right, here it is. All right, so I'd ask staff to present this item. Julianne Van Loo, if you would please present the proposed order, health order.
There we go. My apologies. I'm on now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. As discussed earlier this evening, this health order would rescind all previous elements of health orders around social distancing. It would also rescind any requirement around mask wearing outdoors. It would remain in place a requirement for mask wearing in public spaces. That's really the crux of the health order. Happy to take questions, or Misty, if you have anything else to add.
You have to excuse me while I try and move these things from my way. Okay, are there any comments or questions from?
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval.
Mayor, Commissioner Burrows did have his hand up and now it's back down, so.
And Mayor, I think you're muted.
I'm muted. Thank you. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. My question was, is this going to be date certain? Are we going to just run this will be in effect until when?
Thank you, sir. This would go into effect at midnight and be in effect through May 28th.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what the question I have. Thank you.
And this is Doug Bach, County Administrator. We chose that date because it is consistent with where Kansas City, Missouri has extended their time frame too as well.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Kane, would you bring your motion again?
Move for approval.
Mayor,
Walter, second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kane, a second by Commissioner Walters. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Roll call. Philbrook,
aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
No.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
That vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. Let me pull up my guide again. So now we move to the planning and zoning portion. I'd ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor David Alvey, Commissioner Melissa Bynum at large, District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows at large, District 2, Commissioner Gail House, District 3, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Christian Ramirez, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the planning and zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to raise your hand and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If you contacted the UG clerk's office, that item will be set aside by the UG clerk on your behalf. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone who is joining us by Zoom or by phone to mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background noise so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. This is your time to raise your hand. When your name is called, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item of the agenda.
This is Commissioner Philbrook. I had an opponent to SP 2021-008.
Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Since our last meeting, Commissioner, mayors, I've had contact with the proponent for SP 2020-105 and also had contact with persons in opposition to that application. Thank you.
Commissioner Burrows?
Thank you, Mayor. I've had proponents of SP 2021-019.
Commissioner Walters?
I've had contact with proponents of SP 2020-100.
Commissioner Kane?
I've had multiple complaints from COZ 2021-006.
Okay, that's all I see.
Okay, moving forward, I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone applications, item number 1. COZ 3233, Alicia Ellingsworth with KC Farm School at Gibbs Road. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District for a community garden at 4223 and 4225 Gibbs Road. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, COZ 2021-006, Canal Properties, number 459 LLC. Change of zone from CP1 Planned Limited Business and MP2 Planned General Industrial Districts to MP2 Planned General Industrial District to remove light manufacturing restriction from previous approval at 9700 Leavenworth Road. Recommended for approval. Special use permit applications. Item number 1, SP 2020-97, Riyadh Baghdadi with RB Architecture Engineers. Special use permit for auto sales, repair and bodywork at 927 Kansas Avenue. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, SP 2021-001, Timothy Paxton. Special use permit for a storage container for tools at 3319 North 59th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 3, SP 2021-003, Sheila A. Orenberg with Wester Holdings LLC. Special use permit for a beer hall at 101 Central Avenue. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 4, SP 2021-008, Lexi McDaniel. Special use permit for a banquet facility in the evenings and weekends at 1000 North 82nd Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 5, SP 2021-012, Michael and Andrea Gakis. Renewal of a special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 2716 North 119th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 6, SP 2021-019, Josh and Allison Brandon with Beautifully Bear LP DBA The Bar. Special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with bar at 67 1/2 Call Drive. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Item number 7, SP 2021-020, Brian Ruoff with 3F30 Architects. Renewal and expansion of special use permit for a liquor store with packaged liquor sales at 3801 Leavenworth Road. Recommended for approval for 5 years. Item number 8, SP 2020-105, Montserrat Perez Mera. Special use permit for a shipping container at 3500 North 32nd Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Vacation applications. Item number 1, BAC 2021-001, Bob Becker with Legends 267 LLC. Vacation of electrical easement at 1 at 1879 Village West Parkway. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, VAC 2021-002, Bob Becker with Legends 267 LLC. Vacation of electrical easement 2 at 1879 Village West Parkway. Recommended for approval. Item number 3, VAC 2021-003, Bob Becker with Legends 267 LLC. Vacation of sanitary sewer at 1879 Village West Parkway. Recommended for approval. And item number 4, VAC 2021-004, Bob Becker with Legends 267 LLC. Vacation of utility easement at 1879 Village West Parkway. Recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances. Item number 1, an ordinance authorizing master plan amendment MP 2020-6. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, an ordinance rezoning property at 200 South James Street from M3 Heavy Industrial District to TND Traditional Neighborhood Design. Recommended for approval. Item number 3, an ordinance rezoning property at 1825 North 94th from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District. Recommended for approval. Item number 4, an ordinance rezoning property at 1841 North 94th Street from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District. Recommended for approval. Item number 5, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for a car audio installation shop at 1315 State Avenue. Recommended for approval. Item number 6, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 1127 Southwest Boulevard. Recommended for approval. Item number 7, an ordinance authorizing a special use permit for a kennel for 10 dogs at 3440 North 131st Street. Recommended for approval. And item number 8, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 0-29-21 and enacting a new ordinance for vacation application S-2020-12 at 1 Woodsweather Road and 1R Woodsweather Road. Recommended for approval. Those are all of the items on the consent agenda for this evening.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission, staff, or anyone in the public wish to set aside any item on the consent agenda?
Mayor, this is Commissioner Mike Kane. I want to take off C0Z 2021-006.
Thank you. Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Mayor, I'd like to set aside SP 2020-105.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve all items as submitted.
McKiernan, second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion passes.
Thank you. That takes us to set aside item A2, change of zone application COZ 2021-006, Scannell Properties number 459 LLC for a change of zone from CP1 planned limited business and MP2 planned general industrial districts to MP2 planned general industrial district to remove light manufacturing restriction from previous approval. Woodlands Phase 2 at 9700 Leavenworth Road. Planning Commission has recommended approval. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hinn, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Before I get started, can everybody hear me and can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the Woodlands redevelopment project. This project was approved last fall. The applicant has since that time come in for a revision to that plan for multiple reasons. One, namely being the removal of a condition of approval, specifically related to, it stated previously, no manufacturing uses allowed. We have replaced that condition of approval with one that focuses more on eliminating, quote, dirty uses. If you all recall, the MP2 designation is, while not MP3, we went with MP2 because MP2 allows for the height of the building that's currently under construction at the Woodlands development, as well as outside storage. There are covenants on that land that restrict the uses and other standards to MP1. This additional condition previously approved restricted some of the uses that the applicant had been seeking to occupy this business park that quite frankly would have had less of an impact than the building they're currently building on building A. So instead of saying no manufacturing uses, because manufacturing has evolved quite a bit to potentially have, for instance, less traffic impact than a distribution center and looks like any other warehouse, we changed the condition of approval to say that we don't want to see, hear, or smell any uses, so including steam. And so that's how we sort of eliminated both the type of industrial uses we're trying to avoid at this location, but allow for a little more flexibility for the applicant to fill their business park in the future. Additionally, after a significant amount of feedback from the public, we worked with the applicant, and the applicant ended up proposing a second entrance to the site off of Leavenworth Road. There had been a lot of conversation in a previous attempt by the applicant to change their site plan and add a second entrance on 99th Street. That didn't advance, and so they've redesigned their property. They've eliminated the retail node at the southwest corner of the site and instead are looking to build additional industrial development. The way that staff sees this is that is a better site plan. The berming that is proposed in the current plan along 99th Street, again, most of that berming exists already from the previous Woodland development. That will essentially carry all the way around Leavenworth Road, and for all intents and purposes, what will be seen from the street or the public right-of-way on all sides. Because of that berming, because of the screening, because of the landscaping, as well as the previous stipulations to maintain existing ridge lines on the site, it's a relatively hilly and already wooded site. We feel like the only thing really that we're going to see other than the traffic in and out of the development are the two entrances moving forward. There's also a third entrance on 99th Street, but that is for emergency vehicles only. So that's the second issue that was, or the second difference and change to this proposal. The third change is also a very significant one. We have received quite a few complaints about the construction. It is a very large construction site. Part of not being able to, quote, see these buildings was they had to do a lot of sinking of a lot of grading to get down into the site. They've been doing some blasting at the site, and so accordingly, we have added some conditions of approval to this that were reviewed by the Planning Commission for construction-related activities, and so to hold them accountable to some standards there, we added those accordingly. There are a couple things I wanted to mention just really quick as well. In the staff report in front of you regarding this case, condition number 32 has an error. When the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously earlier this month, they made a motion to amend one of our conditions of approval, specifically around the notification of if construction were to go outside of the stated hours that we have in one of our conditions of approval, to expand that to specifically say that they wanted that to happen through electronic communication. The builders of the Woodland redevelopment project have a news listserv newsletter that they send out on a regular weekly basis, and they also do intermittent ad hoc announcements. We felt that that was probably the most immediate notice that folks from the public can get, because you can sign up for that listserv pretty easily. UG would work to amplify those notices through our own electronic means, social network, Nextdoor, things of that nature. In that conversation, the Planning Commission also was discussing a potential change to one of the conditions to remove or to not allow the storage of materials in their current trailer yard out there where all the construction-related offices are. They later amended that motion to remove the prohibition of the storage of materials in that trailer yard, and I apologize, I just did not carry that over into the minutes. And so the last sentence in condition number 32 that says no storage of materials is to be located at the laydown area on 99th Street, and all material storage areas must be screened from view of adjacent properties in the public right-of-way needs to be struck. That would not impact the recommendation of the Planning Commission, as it shouldn't be in there in the first place. And so there would be still only need to be a simple majority to potentially pass this motion moving forward. With that, there's one other thing I want to mention. I apologize, there's a lot here to unpack. The second entrance, also we added a condition of approval to screen the property owners across Leavenworth Road of that second entrance. If you all recall, in the original approval, we had a conversation about screening the properties across from the primary entrance, and we developed a condition of approval similar to that for the property owners farther west on Leavenworth Road. Again, across from that second entrance that's proposed as a part of this condition. So with that, there are no NOVs currently on the property. We have received opposition to this change of zone from the public, no letters of support, and staff agrees with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for Mr. Ham before we open public hearing? Commissioner Bynum?
Thanks, Mayor. On item 16, the property owner, the mitigation measure has been agreed upon and staff believe it will be a benefit. The applicant shall fully screen her front yard along Leavenworth Road. And then it states the zoning district only permits a 4-foot open fence in the front. So I guess my questions are, the developer will provide the screen for the front yard, correct? But then we're going to need a variance in order to make it in compliance with our own zoning. Is that right?
Potentially. We're currently working with both the lead designer on the project, Ms. Gardner across the street, as well as the developer and others to go through the design review of that specific mitigation measure. So they, in the last couple of weeks, the applicant's designer has reviewed a proposal, I should say, design proposal with the property owners that they were not in agreement with. And so we're working through a second revision. The way that the condition was written is that we all have to come to agreement. So I think that we feel confident that we'll be able to reach a design solution with all parties.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, as one of the conditions of approval, Ms. Gardner needs to be satisfied with what's going to happen on the, on the screening of her property.
That is correct.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
as we like to say in the planning world, as soon as everybody's equally unhappy, we've done our job.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mayor, Commissioner.
We'll now open the public hearing. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Now I'd ask the applicant to present his application. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Corb Maxwell, Pulcinelli Law Firm, appearing today on behalf of Skinnell Properties. I have with me Sean Kofer and Seth Reese from Olson Associates. Mayor, I have a short presentation. Would it be okay if I shared that?
Yes.
Thank you. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
I'll try to go quickly, Mayor. Thank you all for the time. You all know that we come here with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, but I know there's been substantial discussions about this project. And so I'm going to move really fast, Mayor, as I know you guys have a large agenda, but this is a large item and I want to make sure that I take it through. First, as you all know, Skinnell is an incredibly capable national developer of this project. And second, as we come here before you today, we're coming not with sort of a clean slate, right? We're coming through to this commission with a fully approved plan. That plan was approved last summer, but we've come here to make substantial modifications to the plan, but all modifications that we think are improvements to the unified government in this process and to the neighbors and citizens as well. So that plan that we originally had approved had 5 buildings. It had a very large lot 2 that was for Urban Outfitters, as everyone knows. That moved to the Speedway and is being constructed there, and so there's no need for it. And most importantly, it also had access points on 99th Street. It had an access point to the north for emergency vehicles and an access point to the south for retail. I think as all on the commission know, Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Bynum, and many others, that caused a lot of angst with the folks on 99th Street. And so we've been working through of trying to figure out how do we improve that. I was before the commission in the winter with a second plan, a revised plan for that, that still had a point on 99th Street. And I think at that time, we promised this commission, we were going to go back to the Planning Commission, we were going to look at the plan, we were going to work on that, and we were going to try to improve that so all could be satisfied. And that's what we bring forward today here. We now bring forward a plan that is all industrial in nature, and there are no access points to 99th Street, but for a single emergency access point. This plan has substantially less trip generation. And now, as Gunnar highlighted, but I'm going to walk through, we have very significant construction related stipulations that have been added to the plan. You'll see just the quality of the plan. These are Class A industrial buildings, substantial berming that's been put around it. I could walk any of the commissioners through, but part of the Planning Commission packet and what we have with staff is substantial sightline section showing that the berming and the landscaping keeps the view of those on the sidewalk or the streets that are around our project from not seeing the buildings out there. As I said, the traffic has moved down significantly with this new plan, over 35% from the original plan we had. Here's just a couple of perspectives and renderings that show the various buildings at full build out, being what we in Wyandotte County have become used to of Class A industrial new build buildings, with those substantial components of berming and screening. So this is not often that I talk about this in a planning commission hearing, almost always in, or sorry, a commission hearing, almost always in a rezoning process. We are talking about items of zoning, land use, planning, ultimate conditions, but we know that this has had substantial issues with the neighbors, causes for concerns, complaints, that the commissioners have heard about that. And so I want to sort of go through where we are in this process now, look at those stipulations and how we're handling this, and really just talk about the why we've gotten here and how we're going to do better through the future. First, to the why. The why is really to the point that we are building a 1 million square foot building, and that 1 million square foot building is being built on an incredibly compressed schedule for a very demanding tenant. That demanding tenant required that we have the building done on that schedule so that their substantial job creation and their investment could happen in this community and happen at this site. And because of that, it's led to a lot of the issues that we've had, that we've been having to mobilize crews and make it work through time. We understand that has an impact on those that have been here before us, the neighbors, and we are doing all we can, both with staff, our contractors, and Scannell, to limit those impacts. The good thing is this is all temporary. We will be done with this building A by September of 2021. The concrete batch plant that is bringing and doing the cement on site, which we think was a better use than having hundreds of cement trucks going in and out of the site, that will go away at completion. And so those noise issues will happen. We'll walk through the steps, but any of our large scale temperature driven concrete pours that need to occur, that have to happen over long periods of time when you're pouring a 1 million square foot slab, those are all almost done. I'll walk through some of the building perspectives and pictures that have been taken this week that should show that component is coming to a close. We're running out there an 800-gallon water truck every day, 8 hours a day, when conditions call for it, when it's not already wet out there. And so we're doing everything we can to keep down the dust, and we'll continue to keep that going during all of the construction hours to the benefit of the neighbors out there. And there's been some questions about silt fences and otherwise. They do exist. They're set with the factors that go to our stormwater prevention measures and the permits required by the UG and the state. You'll see some of these silt fences. This is taken from our northern border that I had pictures taken just today to show those silt fences. And then this picture of the construction building was taken approximately this week. And the reason that I show that site is if you look inside underneath the roof, what you'll see is that the vast majority of the concrete slab has been poured. We really only have just maybe a third, maybe a fourth of the building left of that concrete slab to go. And that's why I was saying some of the issues that have caused great concerns for the neighbors will be done here in May. As Gunnar highlighted, but I just wanted to bring forward to the commission, this is very rare that the UG has construction-related stipulations on a rezoning and preliminary plan application. It's the first that I've been involved with all of my projects in the unified government, but we have 6 conditions. They're strenuous. They're hitting about hours of operation. They're looking at construction traffic. They're looking at glare. They're looking at job trailers, batch plant, dust, dirt, trash, noise. All of those items have been highlighted and were agreed to by the Planning Commission, agreed to with staff, and agreed to by us as applicant. And With that, we also have some conditions of approval regarding for traffic that I talked about how this has gotten better. And so with that, Mayor, I apologize for taking some time. I apologize for going so fast. I'd be happy to answer any questions of any of the commissioners in this process, but we would ask for the approval. We believe this is a better plan. We believe this is responsive to a lot of the issues of the citizenry, and we believe this will let us have a better project, not just for Skanell and their tenants, but for all of Wyandotte County. With that, I'd stand for any questions, Mayor, and thank all for their time.
Thank you for switching that out. Now I can get back to my directions. Do you have any questions for Mr. Maxwell? All right, I will then open the public hearing. Mr. Clerk, have we received any notification from the public who wish to express their comments in favor of this item?
Mayor, we did not.
Thank you. Can you switch that back out so I can keep? Thank you. All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, seeing there are none. Is there anyone, have we received any notification from the public who would to express their comments in opposition?
Mayor, we received 2 comments or 2 requests to speak from Maria Torres and Adrian Torres.
Thank you. So we'll now move to those next. Anyone from the public would like to speak in opposition? So Maria and Adrian, if so, please raise your hand to be acknowledged. Once acknowledged, you may state your name and address for the record, and you will be given up to 3 minutes to state your comments. I'm sorry, we did have someone to speak in support of this. I did not see that. Let's go back. Greg Kindle.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, staff. Thank you for giving me just a few minutes. I apologize. I couldn't figure out why my raised hand wasn't working there for a little bit. I just want to be on record once again that we appreciate, one, the role of everybody that has been participating in this conversation. I know it's not been an easy process, but honestly, it has been really refreshing, frankly, to have the kind of interaction that we've had from staff, from the developer, and from the public. I particularly want to highlight the fact the gentleman who spoke at the last Planning Commission meeting, who appreciated the fact that Skanell and their contractors were sweeping the road, but were sweeping some things into his yard, and it just simply asked, could everything be swept over to their side? It was an appropriate kind of interaction, and Skanell and Mr. Maxwell all had the appropriate response, which was, yes, that's a great common sense way to approach this. We've been moving this project forward now, what, at least three neighborhood meetings. I don't know that I've ever seen a project quite like this. This location has a lot of emotional attachment by a lot of folks. But I do want to say that we appreciate the comments that have been made by Gunnar. We agree with his comments and the uses of this site. We believe there's appropriate mitigation measures in place regarding the neighbors' concerns that Mr. Maxwell noted. We totally agree with removing the retail from this location to reduce the traffic count, to control for cars, and frankly, it just wasn't going to be a fantastic location for retail in the long run. We think that, you know, the getting trucks and any traffic off of 99th Street, we appreciate the commissioner's involvement in that discussion as well, and particularly making sure that there's no interaction with school buses. So I think these conversations have all been moving in the right direction. And finally, I just want to make a note that we should be very appreciative of the investment that Skanell is looking to make in this community. Amazon alone has no abatement on it. I know we're not talking about that particular part of the development, but I do appreciate the fact that we have a developer that is looking to put in about 3 million square feet of investment in this community, the jobs to be created, the property taxes to be generated. And so we ask that you would move this forward, and so we can continue to develop this site and bring this to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. We now recognize Ms. Torres and Mr. Torres. So whoever would like to speak, raise your hand, state your name and address.
Mayor, if I may, real quick, we've had 3 people promoted. There was a Rebecca Gardner and 2 of the Torreses were promoted, but nobody has contacted us for or against. So they're going to have to state their position here. I'm not sure where they fall yet.
Okay, so I did ask them if they wanted to speak in favor, they not step forward. So does anyone wish to express their comments in opposition? So I'm assuming Ms. Torres. Mrs. Torres?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, but you've got another speaker on, so we're getting feedback.
All right, am I better?
Yes.
Okay. I think we need to clarify a couple things.
I'm sorry.
April
we
5th, I was
need to ask you to state your
woken
name.
up
and
at
address for the
2:30 in the
record.
morning from all the construction, and I
Ms.
got in my
Torres?
car, drove
Ms.
up to
Torres?
the Woodlands.
Ms. Torres, we need you to
There's
state
2
your name
cars
and
there.
address for
Yes.
the record.
Oh, sorry. Lori Torres, 9828 Donahue Road, Kansas City, Kansas. Can you hear me?
It was 98.
I can't hear you.
It was the address for time it faded out.
I'm just gonna go ahead and talk.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna get on my cell phone.
We're not able to hear you, Ms. Torres.
Mayor, do we want to have Rebecca Gardner speak on?
Yes, we'll do that, but let's make sure we can get Ms. Torres connected. Let's go to Rebecca Gardner. Please state your name and address for the record, please. Mrs. Gardner,
Yes,
go ahead and
this
give
is
us your name and
Rebecca
address for the record,
Gardner.
please. Why connectivity tonight is atrocious. Ms.
Joy
Gardner,
Gardner. I think it's directly across from the main entrance on Leavenworth Road of the Woodlands redo. I am not against what's being done over there, but I do have some issues with my wall that I was promised at the very beginning as a sound wall. Because of all the construction trucks and things like that were going on. I know that will diminish as of very shortly when they finish this first building. But for me, it will not diminish because then all of the Amazon workers and the Amazon trucks will be going in and out of that entrance right at my driveway. I do need that sound wall. And I do not want it changed to just a vinyl fence or a screen of some kind. I do need a sound wall, and I need the adjustment for the height of it as it comes down that driveway so that the lights are not coming right into my house at night. And so I would appreciate that when it comes up to get approved. And I wanted to thank Seth and Sean. We've been talking a lot and working a lot. We're really trying hard to come to agreements on this. And so far, everything has been very friendly, and I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Who else do we have connected at this time?
We do have a connection that says Lori Torres. I'm not sure if that's the connection for the, I assume for the.
Yes,
Maria.
I believe so. Mrs. Torres?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I have a few comments to make. On April 5th, I was awoken by a bunch of construction machinery, drove up to the Woodlands, found 2 police cars. One of the officers says, "Are you the one that called on all the noise?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, they're not supposed to be working here till 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning." And I said, "I know." All I heard was all the beep, beep, beeping from the machinery. I think they drive around backwards 24 hours a day because that's all you heard. And then you heard the concrete plant, and it echoes through the street road, the emergency road they're supposed to be used in the future. It echoes through there, and that has a buzzer on it. It's not right to keep the neighbors up. Also, the concrete mixer, you can see it. There's a little bit of a berm there, but it's not hidden. The concrete mixer isn't hidden. I think they're doing a poor job on that. They've got vinyl signs out there that Gunnar Hand said were temporary signs, which are above and beyond the size that they should be. And I mean, Gunnar Hand's known about this from the beginning because I said, that's not right. You know, I don't want our neighborhood trashed any more than it is. With all the dirt coming in, with all the noise coming in, with all the signs being up. I mean, you guys made that guy out there take the Patrick Mahomes mural off his house. Put the right size signs up there. I want to keep our neighborhood as consistent and as it should be all across the town. Do what?
You have 1 minute remaining of your 3 minutes.
Okay. Also, did the KDOT approve that second entrance? And I shouldn't have to call the EPA on those on all the dirt on the road. One day I was stopped at 99th Street at the stoplight. That street sweeper came up. After he got there and he had that thing running, I had zero visibility out my windows. That's how much dirt was on the road, and he was throwing it in the air. I mean, this is getting a little bit crazy. They say, "Oh, we got a street sweeper." All it does is blow the dirt up in the air and all over everybody's cars and houses. I mean, something has to be done. I mean, they say they're doing this and doing that. You got to put a little elbow grease in it.
Thank you. Are there others who would like to speak?
Nobody else is showing.
Thank you.
Nobody else.
Thank you. Thank you. Have we received any other written notice? All right. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing.
Are you responding, Brett?
Would the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. I would say I think I addressed all of those items in my presentation at the beginning, giving an explanation of kind of how we got here, where we've been through, the things that Skinnell is doing to be responsive to all of these changes or all of these concerns, the stipulations that were added through the Planning Commission process and with the planning staff in this process to be responsive to these neighborhood concerns, to try to be a good neighbor, work through this. I will say again, this is all construction related. It's all temporary. The end is coming very soon. That September, we're done with construction on building A, but even May, we're done with all of the concrete pours out there. So I know this is an impediment on the neighbors, and we take that all very seriously. And we're trying to be the best neighbors we are. We're out sweeping the street because of dirt. I don't know anybody else that goes out and sweeps the street every single day. We're trying to be a good neighbor and a good community partner through this. We'd ask for the support of this commission, and we will do our best to handle all of these issues with staff and with this commission and with this unified government to build a wonderful first-class economic development project for this county.
All right, thank you. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
I do, Mayor, and I don't know how to get this thing going.
Okay, Commissioner Kane.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm at a terrible spot and I'm bouncing in and out. You know, about 2 weeks ago, there was a truck parked right there at the main entrance, and the son that lives across the street with his mom walked over and started talking to the truck driver. And this is like 5:30 in the morning. I'm only asking him to turn his lights out, and the guy refused to do that. In fact, he cussed him out. And as Mrs. Torres says, when she went around the corner, she sent me the pictures of the truck being parked there for an extended period of time. And then about 2 weeks ago, one of the guys on Hurlbrink called EPA because the dust was so bad. You know, and I know we're doing something, but I'm not sure it's enough. And they are not working inside the guidelines that we have given them. So how do we monitor that and make sure that they do? You know, it's, I know some people like this project and some don't. I just want them to follow the guidelines while they're performing their job function. And somebody needs to be held accountable. And Mr. Maxwell, I know that you represent them the best you can, but they're not representing themselves when people are out there complaining and they turn around and start chewing out and cussing out the people that are there. It's very important that we work with the community and the neighbors to make this work. And right now, those folks are not cooperating with the neighborhood, and we need to figure out a way to make them cooperate.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would just add my own comments to this, that, you know, this is in a way a unique project in that it did not ask for any incentives, and I understand that it is moving very quickly. But as Commissioner Kane points out, there is a disconnect perhaps from Skinnell and the people doing the construction, and that's hard because it should not come to the unified government to have to go out, and certainly not to the neighbors to have to keep monitoring this and reporting on these things. That I would suggest that Skinnell has a reputational risk here, that if they were to come forward again into Kansas City, Kansas, I think there's going to be a different look at what they might propose based upon this experience. And so if they do want further opportunities in Kansas City, Kansas, they really need to be doing everything they can, in fact, monitoring it so that we know about things from them before the residents report it to us. Those are just my thoughts. Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell, for coming before us and presenting this application. I just want to second the comments of Commissioner Kane and Mayor Alvey. My question to you, Max Corbin, you may not be able to unless the applicant is online. Why was there that disconnect with the construction company working at what I forgot what time Ms. Torres said, but how or why was that allowed?
So thank you, Commissioner Ramirez. And first, Mayor and Commissioner Kane, I couldn't agree more. I understand and empathize with those points, and I empathize with Mrs. Torres and others out there, and I fully understand the components. Scannell, myself, McCowan Gordon, we've all talked about that deeply, and we really are trying to do our best, and we'll rededicate ourselves. And I understand the monitoring point, and I think we can work with staff on that issue. Commissioner Ramirez, it really goes, and I was sorry if I was a little cryptic in my presentation. It goes to the fact of when you're pouring a 1 million square foot slab, and that slab has to be within a temperature controlled, can only move a few different degrees during the periods of time, and it can't dry for the periods that you're pouring, right? You still got to be all working with wet cement to get it across the whole entire place. And I apologize, I'm obviously not a construction person, but knowing these questions would come, I asked it deeply of both Scannell and McCowan Gordon and our engineers and others. And the answer was in that to be able to pour that slab and get it done within the timeline and otherwise, that would be why we started so early in the morning and then would have to pour all through the day into the early evening. It was literally 14, 15 hours of straight pours happening all through the early morning into the night. That's not great. That's not, and I understand the impact that that has had on folks' lives. I don't like it. Scannell doesn't like it. McCowan Gordon doesn't like it. It was truly being able to keep up with this schedule of what we had to do to deliver for this tenant to get the jobs and the investment. So it stinks. It's not where any of us wanted to be. The good thing about it is Mrs. Torres said April 5th. I think that was 7 days before our planning commission. Nothing has happened that I know of since the planning commission and since the time we're here. You know, I understand there's no reason to pat us on the back for being good guys for 14, 15 days, but I've asked significantly about what's left, what is happening, and we should be done with all of those concrete pours through May. And my understanding is that none of those concrete pours will need to start in the wee hours of the morning, that we should be able to work through and work in more normal business hours, get this done. And that's why we built into the STIPs that if we need to go outside of that in any form or fashion, we need to both notify all of the UG planning staff, so that's out there, and we need to be able to give our e-notice to neighbors because we do have a website list, an email list for those that are interested in the project that McCowan Gordon keeps and that we get out to folks. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers, Commissioner. I'm sure it's not fully satisfying out there, but it is the sort of cards we've been dealt of trying to get this project done, get it out of the way, and be able to move on to a sort of non-construction site in this project.
Thank you, Cord. Thank you for your answer. It does help. I just to reiterate what Mayor Alvey said, you know, make sure that there's not that disconnect between the Scannell and the construction company, and ensure that we're listening to the community and following what the community wants. But thank you very much for your explanation.
Absolutely, Commissioner. And again, Mayor and Commissioner Kane, I know that even in the biggest of even in the smallest of projects, it's hard to control every trade person out there and what they could or could not say to someone, but fully 100%, Commissioner, that's unacceptable. We should not be having people saying things like that to neighbors. I know that is not how Scannell treats constituents. I know that's not how McCowan Gordon feels. And we will once again send that through the ranks to say, this is people's lives, this is people's homes, and all of them must be treated with respect.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Maxwell, you really just said it right there. And I appreciate the fact that now through the stipulations, neighbors will be notified in advance of the full scope of anything that's about to happen. But what I hope for your client and for everybody else who comes into Wyandotte County is don't wait for that to be a stipulation. Go out of your way up front to communicate with the neighbors. Here's what's going to happen. It's going to be for 5 days. We're going to be here. This is why we need to do it. Get everybody on board ahead of time, whether that be a text message, a phone call, an email, a door hanger, a door knock. I think it's really important that we improve our ability, and this is across every function in Wyandotte County, but we need to get better at communicating with each other beforehand, not catching up after the fact. And so I'm confident that you will now, moving forward, be proactive in your communication. I just hope that as we all go forward, that's baked into the process from the very beginning. Thank you.
Well stated, and we'll do all we can, Commissioner McKiernan, now that we're on notice, and you know that we try that in all of our projects and all the clients we represent.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Mr. Maxwell, sir, I respectfully request a meeting with you and them so we can and let them know how important it is to follow the guidelines that they've been given.
Done. Just
thank you.
We absolutely, Commissioner, tell us when, tell us where, on site or otherwise. We're happy to be there.
I will contact you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
I would entertain a motion.
McKiernan, move to approve the item as submitted.
Philbrook, second.
We have a motion is second. Commissioner Bynum.
I'm good. I was trying to lower my hand. Thanks.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next set aside is B8 Special Use Permit Application SP-2020-105 Montserrat Perez Mera for a shipping container at 3500 North 32nd Terrace. The Planning Commission recommended approval for 2 years. I would ask, can you please switch that out because that takes out my screen and my directions there, Brett. Just hold on. Thank you. I'd recognize Commissioner Townsend, who asked to set this item aside.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. 2 months ago, in a prior planning and zoning meetings of this body, this application came forward, and at that time, I asked for and was granted by this body additional time in which to talk with the applicant to see if there were alternatives to what she was seeking, which was the use of a freight container to store ATV equipment. You might recall that at the first presentation of this application, there were longtime neighbors in the area who opposed it. And at that time, and since I also made mention of the fact that to the applicant that this, the use of these storage containers in their raw form is not what this commission had been favoring for the last several years. I did talk with the applicant several times over those last months, and it came to my attention, courtesy of Mr. Hand's office, that the applicant was granted a variance, which would allow her to build an accessory structure without having had a primary structure on there. So by use of this variance, she will have the storage space that she will need. And the citizens who oppose the look of this container and the use of it will not have to tolerate its looks. And therefore, I'm requesting and making a motion that the application for the container be denied, since by the variance, she has the right to build the storage facility that she seeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for the presentation, but is it all right for me to share my screen now?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So as Commissioner Townsend mentioned, this case was also heard earlier this year in conjunction with BOZA 20410-0041, which again was for an accessory structure without a primary structure. We did have several conditions of approval related to the maintenance of the site and the cleanliness of the site. But as Ms. Townsend had noticed it, and when this was originally held over 60 days ago, she had communications both with the applicant and myself on an alternative solution. If you recall from that original presentation 2 months ago, this was a temporary use of land SUP with the intent that they would have a storage container only for 2 years so that they could find a permanent solution. And I believe Commissioner Townsend has worked with the applicant to encourage them and persuade them instead to do the permanent solution, i.e. that shed with a building permit now, as opposed to the storage container. So staff recommends the commissioner's intent to recommend denial.
Thank you. Is the applicant present would like to present her application?
Mr. Mayor, I do believe she's in attendance tonight.
All right, thank you. So now I ask, is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor? And have we received any notification from anyone who would like to speak in favor?
Mayor, it looks like the applicant has been promoted but did not speak.
Or her hand is raised.
Yes, she's a panelist.
Okay, Ms. Perez-Mera, would you like to speak to your application?
Yes.
Please give us your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Montserrat Perez-Mera. I'm from 3500 North Terrace and 32nd Terrace, sorry. And that I know of, I've only been in contact with the counselor twice, and both those times she didn't really talk to me much besides telling me the fact that it was not going to be approved and that I needed to find something else. And since then, she's not been talking to me. We haven't come to a conclusion or something similar, but I have had asked her for something similar, like a shed, if it could be approved, but it's only up to you guys for now.
Thank you. So Dacla, is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor?
There were none.
And we receive any notification?
We did not.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition?
See none.
Do we have any notification?
The clerk did not receive any notifications.
All right, I will now close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Townsend. And again, Mr. Hand, could you remove this from the screen, switch this out? Thank you. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Townsend again. I believe Ms. Montserrat Perez and I clearly have a difference of opinion in what she recalls was the conversation. Not only did I tell her that it was not the desire of several of the neighbors, which spoke on the record at the first meeting, I did tell her that I, as in-district commissioner, did not approve it, but it would be up to this body as a whole. Nevertheless, what she seeks to have, which is storage space, before I even knew, in my numerous times speaking with her, she'd already been granted what she's seeking. And just for the record, I did not encourage her for the variance. That had already been done. I was not aware when I spoke to her that it had been done, but I did contact her after and told her that that's what she had. She did have what she was seeking in terms of an option to private storage. I do believe it is the burden of someone who owns property or private items like ATVs to be able to finance how that's going to be taken care of, and that includes storage. And apparently, at some time prior to this application, that's how these vehicles had been stored. And I believe that it is the responsibility of the owner of such things, not the communities, to bear the burden of that. So again, there has been a variance granted. Mr. Hand can give you the date of that. And I do not support, as the in-district commissioner, the use of this trailer for storage. And therefore, again, I move for a denial of the trailer, the SP for the trailer. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, for your perspective and your comments. I have one quick, like a good comment more so. If we were to deny her special use, I believe it, yes, a special use permit for the container, clearly, you know, she was granted a variance for an accessory structure without a primary. My request, and I hope Commissioner Townsend, I'm not overstepping my bounds since this is not my district, but if we were to deny her SUP, that someone from our planning department maybe reach out to her and help her understand what exactly she can do with the variance, because it seems that she may not know what she can do, and that she can have the storage, but just help give her some clarification on what the variance actually means. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I can have the staff member that worked on this case contact Ms. Maria Perez tomorrow. But as everyone has said, to clarify, she can walk in tomorrow and get a building permit, assuming her shed is over 120 square feet for that property, with or without this SUP.
Commissioner Markley, I second Commissioner Townsend's motion.
Before we vote, Mr. Mayor, this is Misty Brown, Chief Counsel for the Unified Government. And I just would like to clarify Commissioner Townsend's rationale for moving for denial. I believe I understand it, but I just want to make sure it's articulated for the record. What I heard, Commissioner, was the denial was based on the variance was granted, so this application is unnecessary and essentially moot. But I don't wish to put words in your mouth, Commissioner.
Well, Counselor, I would agree, this Commissioner Townsend, that it is moot in that it meets her stated need, which was storage space. And I've said on the record before, as in district, I do not favor the use of these storage containers. That's not how aesthetically this commission had been moving over the last several years. But as to this particular case, the need that she expressed for storage has been met. And that was met even before I asked to have this set aside to continue to talk to her. I also reached out to other commissioners to even find other options. So I guess that answers your question, Counselor. You tell me. Did that answer your question?
It does, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the petition and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
No.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Barkley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. All right, let's see where we are. That takes us to our planning and zoning non-consent agenda. Item number 1 is special use permit SP 2020-100, Mark Murdock with Sullivan Palmer Architects for an outdoor event space for Chateau Avalon at 701 Village West Parkway. The Planning Commission voted 7-1 for approval for 2 years. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks. Mr. Hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Earlier this month, the Planning Commission, in conjunction with this special use permit, approved Plan Review 2021-005. In that plan review associated with this SUP for the event space, again, this is the Chateau Avalon property across from the Kansas Speedway. We worked with the applicant to identify the appropriate place to add the required parking with the new event space in place. We were able to could develop a plan and a configuration where they are currently in contract negotiations with the UG who owns this parcel right here. If you can follow my cursor, where they will be providing that extra parking space. We also did some redesign of their existing parking space to add the required additional ADA parking, as well as pedestrian access across the site to the hotel, to the event space, and to both parking lots. By the applicant's own suggestion, we also added a condition of approval related to the use of amplified sound at that event space, which would be not allowed between the hours of 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. The event doesn't have to stop, they just can't use their speakers. And the other thing that I would note here is that the applicant is currently in a parallel process seeking to rectify the issue they had with that event space and are currently working on a retroactive building permit for it. There will be potentially a gap between the sale and provision of the parking, the acquiring of a building permit, and the publication if the commission moves to approve. They're going to try to squeeze in an event or two if they can get that building permit in time. So with that, staff does agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval for 2 years.
Gunnar, would you switch out the screen just temporarily? Thank you. All right, I'd ask the applicant to present his application. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and staff. My name is Mark Murdock with Sullivan Palmer Architects. I'm the architect on this project. Our address is 8621 Johnson Drive, Merriam, Kansas, 66202. And so our case this evening, as Gunnar pointed out, consists of the request of a special use permit to allow for special events for at Chateau Avalon, located at 701 Village West Parkway. The proposed detached orangery will incorporate an indoor-outdoor concept, which is anticipated to hold catered events such as weddings with a capacity of 250 people max. Chateau Avalon has been a good standing business in Kansas City, Kansas for about 17 years now, while bringing unique experiences to the community. The hotel hopes to continue to bring these experiences to the area with this detached event space with a unique ornate design. The special event space will be sure to attract several events throughout our lovely regional event season. I thank you again for allowing us to present our proposal this evening of the special use permit for outdoor seasonal events. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hand or Mr. Murdock? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this, or we have received any notification?
We did not, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone present who would like to speak in opposition? All right. Seeing
Someone does
none,
have their hand up, Mayor. Let's find out.
I'm sorry.
But not any longer. Their hand just went down.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, I will now close the public hearing. Again, any questions or comments from the commission?
Mayor, excuse me one moment. Someone was just promoted. I do not know. It's a telephone number.
Okay.
816, and I do not see it where it's at now. Star 89, so I am not sure who that might be, but they had their hand up. They are able to talk. Do we know what the number is, Carol? I don't see it here now. I do not
Is there
see
a
it.
number associated with it?
It's not there.
I see the phone number, but it's muted.
Greg Kindle? I see Greg's hand up now.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Greg Kindle with the Wyandotte Economic Development Council, 727 Minnesota, Kansas City, Kansas. I apologize. I've had some trouble keeping the hand up when it's supposed to be up or down. So it's been an interesting evening on that. I just wanted to weigh in just briefly to say that, in light of the pandemic, I think we're super supportive of this application and the fact that Steve Beaumont with Chateau Avalon is going to invest about $500,000 into this project to increase events at the Chateau Avalon. I think their plan is to have as many as 100 events there by 2023, which would bring additional guests and transit activity into the Village West area. We're excited about what he wants to do, and we're glad to see that he is, going back and getting retroactively the permits that he needed. We do appreciate the fact that both he and planning staff, as well as a number of elected officials along the way, have been involved in this conversation, and appreciate that the unified government has been involved with helping to provide the parking space and get some resolution. I feel like this was a good conversation and a good resolution to a lot of the issues, but I also appreciate the fact that Steve and Chateau Avalon are looking to put more investment into that facility and bring folks into the community. So with that, I ask that you all would support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Murdock, for coming before us today on this application. I just have a few questions. I'm going to go through application as much as I can. On Gunner, for the condition 12, the sale of the property from the unified government to be used for parking. I know you said that is under negotiation. Is there, and I know, like I said, it's still under negotiation. Is there any update that could possibly provide without hampering those negotiations?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I apologize. I do not have an update on those negotiations. I'd have to potentially defer to others.
Okay.
Mr. Bach? Mr. Bach, could you address that?
Mayor, could I ask to repeat the question, please?
Mr. Bach, my question was pertaining to the condition of that the special use permit is conditioned upon the sale of the property. And I was just wanting to see if, without hampering negotiations, if we could get an update of what that is looking like at the moment.
Yeah, our negotiations are complete. The only outstanding issue is they had to get a survey done regarding the property. So once they finalize their survey, then we will be able to finalize our agreement as to what piece of property they're going to acquire.
Okay, thank you for that. My other question, Gunnar, this is connected to a plan review application. Is that still with planning department or in the planning commission, or are this application the same thing?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Plan reviews are approved by the Planning Commission and don't rise to the Board of Commissioners, so they're intricately related. And the Planning Commission has approved the plan review. Again, that plan review specifically looks at the site plan I showed a little earlier.
Okay, great, thank you. I see that Planning Commissioner reasons was the sole no vote. What was his, if you remember, his reasoning for voting no?
Again, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Mr. Reasons did not specifically state why he voted no, although during the Planning Commission hearing, he was concerned about the process by which the applicant had erected the building that is to be used for a special use permit. In the staff report, you'll note that there is one NOV on this property, which the applicant is rectifying through this SUP process, and as well as getting a retroactive building permit.
Okay, why was the applicant aware that a building permit was necessary before erecting the structure? Do we know? Okay.
We had a meeting with staff and all the relevant reviewing agencies of the unified government with the applicant last summer and made it very clear the steps that they needed to do to move forward. They're in the process of still working through those steps right now.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Commissioner McTiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hand, I'm going to follow up the question that Commissioner Ramirez just asked. It says in our packet, there is one outstanding violation recorded at this property. The subject was cited for work without a building permit. You just told me that this outfit knew in advance of construction that they needed a building permit, and yet they did not obtain one. Can you enlighten me on the reason for that?
I believe it was last July when we had our DRC meeting with the applicant and walked them through what it would take. Again, this is a somewhat unique situation because it's essentially a prefabricated set that gets pieced together. So we went through all the things that would need to happen in terms of the foundation and the permitting and the inspection process, as well as the conversation that revolves around the SUP. I believe it was later that August, potentially September, when a building inspection and code enforcement, building inspector went out to check on the site as they had some concerns about, I believe at the time it was how they were going to get power to the site, that we found that the building had already been erected. At which time we put together a stop work order, issued an NOV, and began this process.
The building was already completed at that time.
It's a pretty quick assembly and disassembly. That's sort of the intent of, as I understand it, that's the intent of the design. If I remember correctly, I believe they bought it from overseas and shipped it over, and they wanted to put it together to see if all the pieces were there and put together. And so we just happened to show up when they were doing that, and it was already erected.
Maybe Mr. Murdoch could help clear me up on this, because I'm dumbfounded that somebody who's already completed the main structure and went through all the process to do that suddenly doesn't know you need a building permit.
Hi, Commissioner. This is Mark Murdoch, architect. Yes, we went through a plan review last year, and we were denied through, or we weren't accepted for a permit for some reasons, and then it turned out that we needed a special use permit based on the DRC meeting we had with Mr. Hand and others. And at that time, I believe the building was the building did arrive, and the owner decided to, or he needed to ensure that all the pieces arrived on, intact and that they fit together. So yeah, it was erected on that basis, and it can, like the panels and the membrane roof, which is not part of the structure itself, but just the frame was erected, and so I believe that's where we are right now, and retroactively adhering to all of the comments that building inspections has and fire department has on their review comments. And we actually currently have our building permit review resubmitted at this time.
I think my head just exploded. You had a development review committee meeting at which time you were told you must have a permit before you erect any structure. You erected the structure anyway, and now seek to get that building permit retroactively or eliminate the need for it by getting this approved.
Mr. Commissioner, yeah, I believe, that's what it looks like, yes.
Commissioner McKiernan, if I may, I've met with Mr. Beaumont, and the way he tells the story is that he had ordered a structure. It is a question whether it is really considered a permanent structure or more akin to a temporary structure, a tent, because it can be disassembled. He ordered it and was submitted this to our department for review to see how this would be approved. And he said that he was notified by the company once it was delivered that in order to make sure that he was not outside his warranty, he had to assemble it to make sure that it all went together, because there was there was only a time frame where if he didn't get it assembled to make sure it all went together, that the warranty for the delivery would be void. So his statement to me was that they had to construct it in order to make sure that there were any missing pieces or it came damaged, that they could still access their warranty. And he also claims that there was a delay in receiving review from our department about whether and how this structure would be, categorized. Would it be more like a tent? The question comes down to, do we need to have water supplied to it? Well, it's not really a structure that needs water to it, right? So those are some of the issues that came into play here, for clarification.
I appreciate that. It just strikes me that I think we're setting a dangerous precedent if we undermine the DRC process by saying, you can just do whatever you want, and then we'll fix it later. Can you imagine the floodgates we would open if that were the way this works routinely? Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have looked over the design and find it not only unique, I find it to be a novelty that I think will add to the ambiance of the Chateau Avalon. So, Mayor, with some of the questions that's been raised tonight, I will rise in support of the project, because I truly believe that when we have the quality of hotel that the Chateau Avalon presents in our community, as well as a venue that complements it, that can add to additional stays and or additional revenue and people experiencing a pleasurable night in our community, I think we are of benefit. And so I do appreciate the investment Mr. Beaumont brings forward for this project.
Commissioner Walters.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I thank you for trying to give a little bit more background. I have talked to Mr. Beaumont several times over the past several months about his challenge of working through the process to get a building permit. And I am sure he would admit that he had made some errors in his process, and I'm not so sure that we haven't either. But there's a lot of water that's gone over the dam. The facility has not been able to be used for months. We were talking about last August. This is almost 8 months later, and it still hasn't been able to be used. So at this point, I believe the department and Mr. Beaumont have reconciled to a positive way forward, everybody taking their respective lumps. And I think we should support this project. And with that, I would like to move for approval as submitted.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Commissioner Burrows, second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Ramirez, did you have a question?
I just wanted to just echo what Commissioner Walters was saying.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
No.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
No.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 8-2. That motion carries.
Thank you. We now go to item 2, special use permit SP 2021-016, Bryant Parker for a used car dealership at 1010.
You're muted, Mayor.
I said all that for nothing. Item number 2 is a special use permit SP 2021-016, Bryant Parker for a used car dealership at 1010 Merriam Lane. Planning Commission voted 7-1 for approval for 2 years. I'd ask Mr. Hand to make comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I'm going to bring up my screen here again to go through my slide.
You can keep doing that because I pulled up my laptop and accessing my guide from there.
Okay. And of course, now I can't find the PDF to share. Here, let's do it this way. And pull up that. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Again, this property has quite the history that I'd like to go through really quick just to provide a little bit of background and context here. Again, the application specifically at 1010 Merriam Lane is to operate a used car dealership. This is in the Rosedale neighborhood of the county, very close to what some have been taken to call downtown Rosedale, just on the other side of I-35, right when it turns, Southwest Boulevard turns into Merriam Lane. The proposal is a resubmittal of a project that in December 2017 received a variance for parking, as well as an SUP for auto sales, and then its renewal in 2019 was denied. Part of that denial's purpose or stated reason, one of several, was the unwillingness of the applicant at that time to construct a sidewalk on Dodson Avenue, directly to the north of the property. It is a very constrained site, as you can sort of see here. Those improvements have been made since that time, or during sort of in the middle of all of this. A lot of the streetscape improvements on Merriam Lane were implemented by the unified government. But as a part of this SUP, the applicant has agreed to build the sidewalk on Dodson Avenue first before moving forward. The way that the original variance was written is that if any change in use were to occur, it would moot that parking variance. So If anything else comes from this other than Mr. Bryant's client and the auto sales dealership, we sort of start fresh. And with that, I would just like to point, as you can see with the constrained site, there's really no place for a trash enclosure. One of the conditions of approval is that all trash will be removed off-site every night, as well as the applicant does not intend to use the second floor. It is to remain empty. So again, the use of that floor would transform both how the property is used, but also impact that parking variance. So another condition of approval is to not use that second floor while it is an auto dealership. There is one NOV on the property during the year that they were in wait before they reapplied for an SUP. Many of the cars were left on the site, as you can see here. The applicant is rectifying that NOV through this application for an SUP. The Rosedale Development Association did come out at the Planning Commission hearing earlier this month in opposition. We've received no letters of support, but staff does agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval for 2 years.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, would like to speak?
They've been promoted.
Yes, I am present, and I'm also really mindful of the hour. Those of us that have served in local government, we all know these meetings get pretty long. And so while I don't want to rush through, at the same time, I really want to just emphasize that from the applicant's perspective, we were in complete agreement with staff. All of staff's recommendations and conditions to include, but certainly not be limited to, that the sidewalk be built to the north along the street before the dealership reopens. I would add that while the cars remain stored at the dealership, or excuse me, at the location by my client, Mr. Abdul Mazid, they were not sold. There was no car sales that happened there. He merely maintained his business license so that hopefully with the hope that it would that this SUP upon resubmittal would be approved, and he didn't want to go through that process again. I forgot to mention, my name is Frank Parker. I'm the applicant's attorney. Applicant is Abdul Mazid, A+ Auto Sales. I 9909 Row Avenue in Overland Park, and I office in Corporate Woods. I think two other points that I really wanted to bring to the commission's attention, just how much my client has invested in the property. Tens of thousands of dollars in terms of improving the facade and cleaning it up. If we were to, again, this is, it's getting late, but if we were to go through the history of the property, there was vandalism, lots of littering, vacancy. It was occupied on and off for the last decade and a half, but there, in addition to some of the other occupancy, there was quite a bit of just vacancy of the building. One of the other things that my client did from the middle of 2019 through the middle of 2020, when it just appeared to be futile, was listed the building for sale to literally anyone else that wanted to do something else with it. I don't think anyone would say that a used car lot is the most amazing business purpose that any site could be put to. That's not our argument today. It's what my client knows to do with the building, and he's a very responsible citizen, has been a good citizen, and I think a good neighbor. And we had no takers when we offered the property for sale, so that's the reason we're back before you today, requesting the 2-year permit be granted. And my client is also listening, is happy to be promoted and answer any questions that you might have. There's a little bit of a language barrier, but they do speak good English. Just let me know if there's anything that you would like for me to answer, and I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition?
Seeing none.
I will now close the public hearing.
Mr.
Commissioner,
Mr. Mayor, I
yes.
apologize. Aaron Strike is on the line from the Rosedale Development Association.
Okay. Yes, Aaron? Ms. Stryker? Mrs. Stryker, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for promoting me. Rosedale Development Association, I'm Erin Stryka with Rosedale Development Association, which is at 1403 Southwest Boulevard. Rosedale Development Association opposes special use permits for automotive uses on the Southwest Boulevard Merriam Lane corridor. The reason is just that this corridor is kind of going through a renaissance over the past maybe 10 years, really kicked into gear by the $7 million that the unified government invested in this corridor in stormwater control, curb and sidewalk, and bike lanes back in 2013. We're seeing new businesses coming in. We're seeing some really great reuses of buildings that have been abandoned for a long time. And we're seeing that move kind of from the east to the west down the corridor. There's really nothing at all wrong with this business. Mr. Mazid is a great, responsible business owner. He's done a beautiful job with the property. I don't have any issue with what he's doing or with the work he's done. The issue is simply that the more special use permits we approve for automotive uses in the corridor, the more it increases the impression that that's what this corridor is. It's just kind of a mile of cars. It doesn't surprise me at all that when Mr. Mazid listed the property for sale, it didn't sell. It's kind of a tough sell there. And part of the reason is that we've approved so many of these special use permits. So we're not supporting this application, not because of any issue with the business, but because we think we need to change overall the corridor, what we're approving for this. We need to stop approving these SUPs for automotive uses and start working to attract different uses and keep this momentum going down to the west on the corridor. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, if there's anyone else in opposition? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Would the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
Yes, just very briefly. And I very much, we very much appreciated the opportunity to meet with Ms. Stryka. We've done it both in 2017 and then for the current application, and we definitely understand where the neighborhood association's coming from. They've done a fantastic job with their efforts. I did want to point out, and I know she did identify there's a business reality, and that's we've mentioned it with our discussions with staff as well as with her. We just can't find a buyer for the building, and this is the only use that we know to put it in its current status. It's not, it would require an investment of hundreds of thousands of dollars into that structure to repurpose it, for example, as a restaurant. It's just, there's so much investment that would be needed. And so my client took his limited financial resources and tried to convert the building into something that would be both a credit to the community, but also be financially realistic. Very quickly, I want to share with you one map, and then I'll be done, I promise. Here it is. This is a little map that I put together just to illustrate some of the headwinds that we're facing. You'll see, if you can see my cursor, I don't know if you can or not. I see Mr. Hand. Yeah, he gives me the thumbs up. Okay, good. Our property's in blue, right? I'm going to say over here, beginning with these properties here, this is an area where the neighborhood associations made a lot of progress and should definitely be commended for their efforts. Here is what we're facing from a real estate, economic standpoint. There immediately south to us is a large used car lot that's grandfathered. To my knowledge, I don't think they have to apply for special use permits. I don't want to ever besmirch anyone. I don't think anyone would say that they look nearly as nice as our lot does. Across the street, there's a gun store followed by auto repair, and everything in green is an automobile-oriented use, and everything in red is heavy commercial merging to industrial user. So south of the used car lot, we have a landscaping firm. There's Rhino Builders. Here's Wally World Used Car Broker, MKC Performance Auto Parts, Bucks Roofing, the legendary Rosedale Drive-In. And then you have some more auto-oriented uses, including some junk car storage and auto repair down here. I only bring that up to say that there are reasons why this site is particularly, you could say, challenged, or you could say well suited to the use that the applicant is desiring to put it to for this 2-year period. Again, it's not permanent. And with that, I will stop screen sharing and let the meeting move on.
Right. Thank you. Any members of the commission questions or comments? Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bryan, for presenting and coming before us tonight. My question is if Mrs. Strika is still online, or if she can. Are you still online?
Yes, I'm still online.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for all that you do for Rosedale. I know RDA is an amazing organization that does a lot for the community. But what, and Mr. Bryant gave an example of possibly restaurant, but it might not work. What uses do you think, or RDA thinks, could be used for that site?
That's a great question. So I actually haven't been inside the building, but let me just tell you a couple of the uses that we've seen on the east side of Mr. Parker's map in small, weird buildings without a lot of parking. We have a brand new chicken restaurant called Chicks and KC right next to our office. That is a walk-up restaurant. It's just got a window you walk up to and no parking. There's a guy who's opening a coffee shop in an old flower shop with apartments up top, in another building with no parking that's jammed right up next to the building next to it. And then just across the street from 1010 is this itty bitty little building that has been reconverted into an office use. So I'm sure Mr. Parker's correct that it would take quite an investment to repurpose that building. But at the same time, that investment is happening in a lot of buildings along that corridor, and we want to see it continue happening.
Okay, thank you. And is this, I apologize for not knowing this or remembering this, but is this corridor part of the Rosedale Master Plan?
It is not. It is part of the Southwest Boulevard Miriam Lane Master Plan, which was adopted in 2011. The relevant part of that master plan is that it calls for a diverse mix of businesses on the corridor. And the biggest obstacle we have to building that diverse mix is we have so many automotive uses and it crowds out everything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, thank you very much for answering those questions, Mrs. Strika. I know Mr. Mazid has been part of this property and he has done what he can and taken care of the property, but following the lines of what Mrs. Strika was saying, this is a corridor that is becoming revitalized, and I would agree with the assessment of the RDA that even though Mr. Mazid may mean well and he just wants to give back to the community, but I just think that this property could be used for other purposes, because there is already another used car lot right next to his, and right next to the property. And so I personally am not in support of the SUP.
Mr. Ramirez, if I may, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Ms. Strika mentioned the Southwest Boulevard Merriam Lane Corridor Master Plan. Starting, I believe they're going to get their notice to proceed on May 1st. Starting then, one of our 3 Planning Sustainable Places grants that we received from the Mid-American Regional Council will begin. Ms. Strika, in no small part, is talking about the vision that exists for this corridor in that master plan. We are going to have a chance to revisit that vision and extend it farther into our neighboring cities to the south and west, starting with this very property, as the extent of that area plan of that study begins right where Southwest Boulevard turns into Merriam Lane, again heading south and west. So I think that we can have these conversations starting as soon as next week.
That is great. I look forward to those conversations, and I'm sure Mrs. Strika is looking forward to those conversations as well. Like I said, it's a corridor that is becoming revitalizing, and that it has a lot of potential. And so I again, I thank Mr. Mazid for what he's done. And hopefully during this process of relooking and revitalizing, we can find another space, another property for him somewhere on the corridor or somewhere near the corridor where we can help him continue giving back to our community.
Commissioner Markley.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that there are other ideas for what could happen with this property. And Lord knows there are properties in my district that I have other ideas about what I would like to see on that property. But the reality is we don't own those pieces of property. And if we get into a trend of telling business owners, you own this property, but we're not going to let you do anything with it, I don't think we're going to have many business owners that want to locate here. This gentleman has done what we ask our business owners to do. The fact that we don't like what he wants to use this particular property for, to me, that's a difficult reason to tell him no, particularly when we have nothing lined up to take over that lot. So he owns this property. He's paying for this property. To tell him you can't do anything with it because we'd like to see something better, when he's tried to sell it on the market and hasn't been able to, we're putting him in a really terrible position. And I'm not comfortable with the concept of doing that to our business owners, particularly since this is a limited time special use permit. So if we have discussions as part of this master plan and we decide that we'd like to go a different direction, he's got to come back in 2 years. He has to come back in 2 years. So if in 2 years we have a different setup we'd like to utilize this property for, and we have some actual plan to move forward with that different setup, then we can ask this gentleman to move his business somewhere else and try to implement that new plan. Right now, we have no plan at all. What we have is a vision, and it's a great vision. But to ask this gentleman to sit on this property and do nothing for 2 years because we have a vision, it's a difficult ask, I think.
I'm going to kind of chime in here with Commissioner Markley. It would seem to me that because of the work he's done to the property, as I've driven by it, drive by there quite often, he's done a great job improving it. It looks better, it appears better, and actually he has done his part to improve the community. And as he does that, and as things continue to move, the value of that property will continue to attract other people who will see other purposes for it. And so if he, has a car dealership there for 2 years, and then someone else comes along and says, I would love to put a business in there, I'd love to, do a restaurant, they're going to be coming to him looking for that. So this is not set in stone. It's a 2 year, like Commissioner said, it's a 2-year process. I think activating corners is better than having things empty. Commissioner Bynum?
Thanks, Mayor. I was really struggling with this conversation, and Aaron Strega and RDA know that probably 9.5 times out of 10, I really support their work and their efforts, but I was truly struggling with the concept that we would ask a property owner not to conduct business where we are collecting and remitting sales tax on automobiles, which means substantial sales tax, which benefits everyone, because we are potentially waiting for a vision to come to fruition of something that might be quote unquote better. And Commissioner Markley really captured every thought that I was having with regard to this property. But I would additionally ask, is that a reason that falls within our factors to be considered as a legitimate reason to vote for a denial of an SUP? Gunner or Misty Brown, please.
Commissioner, this is Misty Brown, Chief Counsel for the Unified Government. And I was having a bit of heartburn about the conversation. The Golden case was, about a property owner who couldn't find somebody to do with the property what the city wanted. So if the commission was going to vote to deny the application today, I would ask that whoever made a motion contemplated the golden factors and kept that in mind when making a motion. So, you could consider the character of the neighborhood and the zoning uses of nearby properties, but it could be challenging to just go based on a vision for the property. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
It answers my question. Thank you.
And if I may, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. So the zoning, including these special use permits, are the tools that which we implement the land use plan. And the land use category for this site is business park. And in the citywide master plan, a business park is for warehousing, business research, related commercial and services used such as, wholesale stores, outlet stores, office supply stores, service stations, convenience stores, hotels, motels, supporting restaurants, and medical facilities. So it's a broad, very broad category of which this, you could argue, fits within. It also fits in, I think, a lot of the stuff that Ms. Strika had said is in the vision, right? It's just this property owner knows how to sell cars, and that's what he bought the property to do. I would reiterate the fact that in the next month, we're going to launch a planning process where we had specifically written in that RFP that one of the things we want out of that planning process is to define a way or a strategy, I should say, to start the process by which we start working towards that vision and moving away from maybe historical businesses on that corridor that were more focused on heavy commercial and automobile sales. So I think that this is the very conversation we want to have in this planning process, is how do we start to turn these things into the vision that we have identified as a community.
Thank you, Gunnar.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Markley. That is why there are 10 of us on this board. We all have our different minds, and that is something I honestly did not think of, did not come to mind. So thank you very much for those comments. And I agree. I agree that Mr. Mazid has done what he has done. He has taken care of the property. And it says here, I will say, I went back through and I read the application, and even though it is an economic hardship, he's going to build the sidewalk. And so I changed my mind because, like I said, we have 2 years. He has 2 years to operate this business. And within those 2 years, as Gunnar said, we're going to start the process of relooking at the vision. And I want Mr. Mazid to be part of that. I want him to be part of the planning process because he is a business owner on that corridor. He has to have a say. And so I changed my mind and I moved to approve this application, this SUP application.
Second.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second.
I think Markley already had, Commissioner, but thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
That vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the planning and zoning portion of the meeting. We now move to our regular consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Commissioner Johnson, move to approve as submitted.
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Bynum.
thank you. It's Commissioner Bynum. Since I have a question on the nominations to boards and commissions, I guess I better ask to set it aside.
All right. We are setting aside, which item is that? The nominations?
Yeah, item 1, nominations.
Okay, thank you. I'd entertain a motion for the remainder.
I will second Commissioner Johnson's motion. This is Commissioner McKiernan.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to the set aside item. I defer to Commissioner Bynum, who has set this aside.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no objection to any of the names put forward for nomination to the Law Enforcement Advisory Board, but I seek to understand how it is the county sheriff has 3 positions to nominate on this Law Enforcement Advisory Board. Each of us makes 1.
I don't know. I'm assuming that it was part of the bylaws when it was established. I don't know if anyone here has any recollection of this. It was part of that.
Mayor, and I guess I would say I'm more than willing to vote for each of the names, but I would like to understand at some point how and why it was set up for the sheriff to have 3 persons placed on the board.
Commissioner, this is Allie Porter, the commission liaison. I will get the bylaw to you. I'm trying to search for it real fast, but I'm unable to locate it. But the sheriff, by the bylaw, I believe actually has 4 appointments, and then the commissioners and mayor each have 1.
And Allie, do you recall off the top of your head, does the chief of police have any appointments? If you don't know, that's fine.
Mayor, this is
Emmerich.
I'm on the website now. It says each UG commissioner appoints a single member. The mayor appoints 1 member. The Wyandotte County Sheriff appoints 3 members. That's reading from our website for the Law Enforcement Advisory Board.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Emmerich. And if anyone's got the historical background, I would appreciate an understanding of how and why it's set up that way. In the meantime, Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the nominations.
I think we have a motion. You have a second?
Johnson, second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to standing committee agenda. According to the blue sheet, 1 item has been added on the standing committee's agenda. It's the EPA's Healthy, Resilient, and Sustainable Materials Management Grant. The item was presented to standing committee last Monday, received a unanimous vote for approval, fast tracked to tonight's agenda. Commissioner Bynum, do you have anything to add?
I apologize, I was muted.
That's okay.
Now, which item are you talking about? I'm confused myself.
The blue sheet, the EPA's Healthy, Resilient, and Sustainable
Oh.
Materials Management Grant.
No, it's it's a grant that we unanimously approved, no match, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
All right. I'd entertain a motion.
Markley, move to approve.
Fine, I'm
Johnson.
second.
Philbrook. Oops, sorry.
We have a second by Bynum. Any
Yes,
comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley, Walters,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Well, looks like we got enough votes anyway, so.
it is 9-0. That
Thank
motion
you.
carries.
Final item, Administrator's Agenda Item Number 1, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Premier Investments. Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. This is Doug Bach, County Administrator. For you this evening, we have a project submitted for IRBs from Premier Investment. Mr. Wilhite continues to build good projects in our community. I have Patrick Waters here to give you a brief summary of this proposal. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Let me get this up here. So yes, this is an ordinance that would authorize the issuance of $5.5 million in industrial revenue bonds. And let's see. Sorry, it is. Screen is locked here. Okay, here is the location of the project down along the river on 5th Street. The previous use, as you may recall, was as the Midwest Cold Storage Facility. Here's a picture of the new building, just recently completed construction. Approximately 75,000 square feet brings 100 new jobs to our community, $5.5 million investment. And just for some history, last year, this commission adopted the resolution of intent to issue the IRBs and approved an 80% abatement for 10 years. This is an overview of the impact, the economic impact that the community will see from the project. As you see, even during the abatement period, we will average approximately $50,000 a year in property taxes. And then once the abatement wears off, it jumps up to about $253,000. Given the fact that the commission already adopted the resolution of intent and Mr. Wilhite completed the building as he intended to, we would recommend approval of the ordinance that formally authorizes the issuance of the bonds.
Mayor and Commission, I would just add to the fact that this property was on our delinquent tax list several years ago. We worked a coordinated deal with Mr. Wilhite to come forward, and he purchased that property as we took it down through our land bank process, and has approved the site just by clearing it, but moving forward as he had originally promised when we acquired that property through land bank.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move to approve this submission as submitted in just a moment. But before I do that, I know I said this very same thing back the last time this item came before us, but I want to thank Premier and Bill and Kathy and their family for all that they've invested in Armourdale for over the last 50 years, well, over the last 70 years of investment in Armourdale. They absolutely cleared blight in this area. They absolutely have put up a productive building that brings jobs and property tax. Even in spite of an abatement, it's still is a net positive for us. And if we totaled up the property taxes that they pay on all of their properties every year in Armourdale, it is a very impressive number. And we are blessed by their continued investment in our community. And so I would move to approve as submitted.
Townsend, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Kane. The motion is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned.
Sorry. Oh my God, where's my voice? Is Terry